The Crew, District 9 Ultras, Black Army, Servos, Expos Original, TSG, Lucky Supporters, Los Angelinos, Empire Boys. And any other supporter group that I didn't mention. This is a roll call. Remember back in Mono165 where I said all LAFC supporter groups. When it comes time for the CCL, we need the full force. Equipped, armed, figuratively speaking, and ready for the CCL title match. LAFC supporter group 3252 and whatever other supporter groups you have. Start getting your people ready. Start getting your members ready. Because we have to send a large delegation down to Leon, Mexico for this CCL. We need bigger numbers than what you had in Costa Rica. I don't know how many people traveled with you to Costa Rica, but the number of those people that was in Costa Rica needs to double in Mexico for the CCL final. It needs to double it, or even triple it. But let's just be realistic. Double it. The same amount of fans that was in Costa Rica, you're gonna have to double it because we're gonna need a large gang of army. We're gonna need the LAFC army locked and loaded and ready. So I basically just did a roll call and I called out every supporter group that I found on the website, the 3252 website. So I'm assuming you guys are the 3252 Army. So we're here, 3252 Army. We're here. The CCL title. This Wednesday and next Thursday, as long as nothing happens that will cause a delay, you all should be in Mexico. And one thing I said in Mono165 is the amount of people that y'all had in Costa Rica, that number needs to double. And if possible, it needs to triple in Mexico. Because Mexico is a far more tough place to play than Costa Rica. Mexico is a far more hostile environment for an American soccer team to be. You see, NFL gets love from Mexicans. The NBA gets love from Mexicans. And probably even Major League Baseball would get more love from the Mexicans. But there's only one league that will not get any love from the Mexicans. One American league, that is. And that's Major League Soccer. Now you may be wondering, what sets apart Major League Soccer from getting love from the Mexicans compared to the National Football League, the NBA, and MLB. Well, those leagues are not a threat to Liga MX's dominance in that country. Those leagues are not a threat to losing their players to play for the American national team. When NFL, NBA, MLB fans show up, they're not going to have any influence on any of the local soccer leagues, it's called football in Mexico. So they won't have any effect on the football federation in Mexico. They won't have any effect on the football youth programs in Mexico. They won't have any influence on an up and coming football star to betray the Mexican national football team when it comes to FIFA World Cup competition. All those leagues are going to do is just showcase their talent and buy a lot of Mexican merchandise. Because one thing that everybody around the world knows about Americans is that when they show up in your country, they are going to spend. So there's a lot of money to be made for Mexican hotels, Mexican restaurants, Mexican markets, taxi services, airline companies, when NFL, NBA, and MLB, possibly MLB, when those leagues come to town. But Major League Soccer is different. For years, the Mexicans have dominated the continent. For years, Mexico was really the only country that people thought about when it came to world football. Americans never came to mind, and Canadians definitely never came to mind. But the tide has turned. Change has happened. And it started with the Seattle Sounders last year. Now, granted, LAFC and DC United, they were successful in CONCACAF club competitions, CONCACAF continental competitions before the Sounders. However, it didn't have much of an effect on the Mexicans when Galaxy and DC United won. As a matter of fact, the Mexicans, I think they just gave those two clubs a round of applause because they're like, well, we've been dominating every year, so it's nice to see MLS win 1 or 2 years. We just give them a good little gesture. But that nice, friendly gesture, it died through the Seattle Sounders last year. You see, the win that the Seattle Sounders had in the CCL, it signified a change, a turn in the tide of continental dominance, of continental supremacy, of which league is going to be the face of North American football in the 2020s, the 2030s, the 2040s, the 2050s, for the rest of this century. So now when MLS plays Liga MX and the CCL, it's no longer about friendly gestures. It's no longer about, oh, look at the Americans. This must be their year. We've been dominating this competition all these years, and now the Americans. This is just one out of like every 5 years where they appear in the finals. It's not like that anymore. Liga MX knows that MLS is a threat to their popularity. However, the Mexicans, the average Mexican citizen is not aware. As a matter of fact, the average Mexican citizen don't really think about Major League Soccer when it comes to major competitions that Liga MX has to face. They still view the Central Americans as more of a major threat. They still view the South Americans as more of a major threat, despite the fact that Major League Soccer players are recruited by leagues outside of North America way more than Liga MX. It still hasn't reached the average Mexican citizen's attention that there's a new player on the continent, and that's Major League Soccer. And so this is why winning on Mexican soil is important. Winning on Mexican soil during this decade is 10 times more important than winning against Liga MX on American soil. Because us in America, we already know that you're capable of competing against Liga MX. We already know that you're just as good, if not better, than Liga MX. We Americans that follow MLS, we know this. But the Mexicans don't know this. Because we rarely win on Mexican soil. Most of the major Liga MX MLS competitions doesn't take place on Mexican soil. It takes place on American soil, where MLS usually wins. So in the average Mexican citizen's mind, their mind is, well, they only won because they played in America. If they come to our house, if they come to our territory, they wouldn't stand a chance. The Seattle Sounders couldn't do it last year. Even though they won the CCL overall, they did not win on Mexican soil. And this is why they still don't view MLS as a major player when it comes to this CCL title. And I'm talking about the average Mexican city. I'm not talking about Leon. A Leon team that is arguably the best team in this tourney. I give it a tie between Leon and LAFC. But for me to be honest, Leon's play has been a little more impressive than LAFC. Leon first got my attention by how they just dismantled the Haitians. The Haitians were coming in hot. They completely embarrassed an MLS team in Austin, who we all thought was going to sweep the leg, the aggregate. Nobody thought that Austin was going to lose. We all thought that this was going to be like a preseason cakewalk for Austin. But the Haitians, they had victory in their mind. And the Haitians wanted it more than Austin. And not only that, the Haitians proved that they're just as skillful as Austin, but more stronger and more physical. So when it came to them going against Leon, we all thought on the American side, well, if they're able to beat Austin, they should be able to beat Leon, because we don't know much about Leon. But Leon was the team that was more physical. Leon was the team that was more skillful. And the way they Leon beat the Haitians so badly that it looked like the Haitians wasn't even supposed to be in this tourney. I mean, they were beating them so badly that during the game, they were giving the Haitians a pat on the back. The game wasn't even over. In the second half, they're just giving the Haitians a pat on the back. Do you know what it means when a team is beating you badly and the players start patting the opponent on the back, telling them it's okay? Lyon beat that team so badly. They beat Violette AC so badly that they started feeling sorry for their opponent. Now that's what I call confidence. And that's what I call arrogance. When you beat a team so badly that you yourself know that you're beating them so badly that you got to let them know it's okay. It's okay, my friend. That's what they're saying to the Haitians. Don't let that be you, LAFC. The Mexican citizens, they're going to be loud. They're going to be playing music all day long. As a matter of fact, LAFC, as soon as your bus arrives to the stadium, the music's going to be playing. This is why you, 3252 Army, you need to be there bright and early to await the team at the stadium. You need to be at the stadium before the Lyon fans. You need to be tailgating at that stadium before the Lyon fans, because you need to send a message that MLS is not coming for a draw in Mexico. We are going to start winning ball games on Mexican soils, because the Mexican citizens need to know that there's a new player in town, that there's a new player in this continent, and that's MLS. And you don't get their attention by getting draws. You don't get their attention by them being louder than you, by them being coming across as intimidating to you. 3252 Army, you're going to set the tone. And your actions based on your support in Mexico will determine how well the players play this Wednesday. You got to set the tone, 3252 Army. You got to show up to that stadium early. You got to show up and tailgate and play your music and have your own celebration before they do. You got to be willing to sacrifice your souls for the fate of Los Angeles Football Club. Figuratively speaking now, I'm not saying that you should really sacrifice your life. That doesn't make any sense. But figuratively speaking, for this game, LAFC, their mission is not to be the best team in Major League Soccer. Their mission is not to be the best team in CONCACAF. Their mission is to be the best team in the world. This is about a millennium takeover. This is about becoming a new powerhouse, a global powerhouse in this century. And it starts in the CCL. So 3252 Army, you are extremely important. You are extremely important. You are more important than the players, because the players are going to feed off of your spirit. The players are going to feed off your power. The players are going to feed off of your boldness. You're the front line of defense, 3252 Army. You guys are the front line of defense. That's what you need to keep in mind. You guys are the front line of defense. You are going to show up to the stadium before the players show up. So you are going to take on that hostile Mexican fandom before the players show up. And you're going to pave the way of victory for LAFC. Now, I know this is two legs. So a draw, technically speaking, based on CONCACAF soccer rules, a draw will be fine. But this is not about that. We are sending a message to the Mexicans, the average Mexican citizen, that there's a new player in town. There's a new player on this continent. The Seattle Sounders wasn't able to win it on Mexican soil last year. And the Seattle Sounders supporter groups, I'm not even sure how many of them actually showed up, because the Mexicans, oh my goodness, the last year in that match, they were just loud, singing their songs. And The Puma Unum team fed off of that energy. And Puma Unum almost won that game. The theme for this year's CCL is winning on Mexican soil. You win on Mexican soil, LAFC, and the rest will be taken care of. I guarantee you, LAFC, you win on Mexican soil, the second leg will be taken care of. Look, the stage is already being set. The celebratory stage is already being set. LAFC is calling all Magic Johnson, Will Ferrell. They're getting the celebration party ready. They're getting the parade ready. Magic Johnson, Will Ferrell, and every other prominent, important LAFC supporter. They got Los Angeles. They're holding it down for you. But when it comes to being in Mexico, 3252 Army, you're the ones that they're putting in charge. You're the ones that Magic Johnson and Will Ferrell is looking up to make sure that LAFC leaves Mexican soil with a W. Draws is not acceptable because this is bigger than CONCACAF. LAFC is sending a message that there's a new player on this continent for continental dominance. So 3252 Army, you're the front line of defense. And the players are going to feed off of your energy. When their bus arrives to the stadium and they see a crowd full of black and gold outnumbering the green and yellow crowd, they're going to feed off of that energy. So remember that, 3252 Army. It starts with you, LAFC supporter groups. It starts with you. The road to victory starts with you. And that is the purpose of this roll call in Monologue 165. The key to victory starts with you, 3252.
Different day, different moves to make, different pay, no room for mistakes. Different bay, different jewelry, it's okay, this ain't new.